Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening from Los Angeles and good morning to all in the Philippines and wherever you are watching this live stream. Welcome to panel 7 of the webinar series, Historicizing Disaster Risk Management, the Ecology of Mount Isurog and its Environs. I'm Maddie Yeagle. I'm a PhD student and the PEMSEA coordinator at the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at UCLA. Before we start, I would like to recognize that as a land-grant institution, the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at UCLA acknowledges the Gabrielino Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tovaangar, the Los Angeles Basin, and Southern Channel Islands. This webinar series is a product of collaboration among various institutions, including Partido State University, Polytechnic University of the Philippines, the Center for Taiwan Philippines Indigenous Knowledge, Local Knowledge, and Sustainable Studies, or CITIFILS, at the National Chengchi University, Taiwan, and the Program for Early Modern Southeast Asia, or PEMSEA, which is in partnership among the University of Hawaii Manoa Center for Southeast Asian Studies, Department of Anthropology, University of Washington, and the UCLA Center for Southeast Asian Studies. PEMSEA is supported by a generous grant from the Henry Luce Foundation and various UCLA units. This series is supported by the Philippine Commission on Higher Education and the UCLA Coates Institute of Archaeology and the UCLA Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies. Panel 7 focuses on women in archaeology in the Philippines. I want to thank the panelists and moderator for their generosity to participate in this panel and for including me as a panelist to share our experiences working in the Philippines and the state of gender and archaeology in the Philippines today. I also want to congratulate our moderator, Dr. Grace Barreto Tesoro, on being appointed director of the Archaeology Studies program at UP Diliman. And so now we'll have a pre-recorded video to introduce our panelists and our moderator.
Panel 7, titled Women in the Philippine Archaeology, consists of 6 panelists and moderator from the Philippines and United States. Our first panelist is Professor Michelle S. Eusebio from the University of the Philippines. Professor Eusebio is an archaeological chemist and anthropological archaeologist. She earned her PhD, majoring in archaeology at the Department of Anthropology, University of Florida in 2016. She also earned her MS Archaeology and BS Chemistry degrees from the University of the Philippines at the Archaeological Studies program in 2010 and Institute of Chemistry in 2002, respectively. She taught 1 undergraduate and 4 graduate courses in archaeology at ASP from 2007 to 2019. She is presently an assistant professor 7 at the Science and Society program, College of Science, University of the Philippines, teaching the undergraduate course Science, Technology, and Society 1 since 2018. Her research interests are food and foodways, Southeast Asian archaeology, archaeological chemistry, making archaeology relevant to contemporary concerns in Southeast Asia, long-term perspectivism in policymaking, and history of science and technology. Our next panelist is Professor Shireen R. Diamboi from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. Professor Diamboi is a graduate of AB History at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Santa Mesa in 2012. In May 2018, she obtained her master's degree in public administration from the PUP Open University. Her thesis titled Assessment of the Compliance of the Anti-Red Tape Act of 2007 in the Polytechnic University of the Philippines to enhance frontline services delivery received an incentive from the university. Just recently, Ms. Diamboi finished her diploma in archaeology at the Archaeological Studies program of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. While handling the courses Heritage Management and Historic Preservation in the Philippines, Introduction to Museology, and the history of the United States among the BA History students of PUP. She is currently finishing her master's degree in archaeology at UP. Also joining our set of panelists is Ms. Marion C. Reyes from the National Museum of the Philippines. Ms. Reyes is a senior museum researcher at the National Museum of the Philippines Archaeology Division, where she had been working for 6 years. A graduate of BA Anthropology from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, she pursued her MA Archaeology at the Archaeological Studies program of the same university. Her research interests include the study of human and animal remains. She has been part of teams working on well-published sites like Ilan Island in Mindoro, Kiangan in Ifugao, and Rizal in Kalinga, and to have been awarded research grants from here and abroad. Her paper, First Fossil Evidence of the Extinct Philippine Cloud Rat from Ilan Island, Mindoro, and Insights into its Holocene Abundance, was published while working on a thesis on micromammals from the prehistoric sites in Mindoro. She is currently the cluster head reviewing the NMP Museum of Anthropology's social media content. Another member of the panel is Mailene from the University of California, Los Angeles. Ms. Yekel is an archaeology PhD candidate in the UCLA Anthropology Department. Her research interests focus on the Spanish colonial period in the Philippines, specifically the dynamic ways that locals responded to colonial pressures. Her dissertation project in Camarines Sur, Bicol looks at the ways in which Philippine Catholicism reflects a complicated colonial past. Maddie is the field director of the Bicol Archaeological Project, which supports collaborations between local institutions like UCLA, PSU, and the Archdiocese of Cáceres. Through this project, she seeks to involve heritage diaspora students directly with research projects and colleagues in the Philippines. She is currently working as a graduate research assistant on the PEMSEA team and hopes to foster academic and community growth both in the Southeast Asia and in the diaspora. Our last panelist for Panel 7 is Professor Mylene Quinto Lising from the Ateneo de Manila University, Philippines. Professor Lising is an archaeologist specializing in cultural heritage management of materials and sites of prehistory in a country where heritage management is viewed as a sideline. Archaeological heritage management has always been her primary interest. She focused on this subfield of the discipline of archaeology to find out what can be done to develop it and where the gaps are, and how it can be of relevance and of service to a greater majority of people. In the last quarter of this year, she intends to defend her PhD dissertation in Germany, in which she looks to answer these questions and will make recommendations moving forward, after studying the landscape and environment of archaeological heritage management in the Philippines for the last 9 years. Her current affiliations include being a part of Kalinga Archaeological Expedition Team, a faculty member of the Ateneo de Manila University Department of Sociology and Anthropology, and a PhD student of the Prehistoric Archaeology Department of the Goethe University Frankfurt with a scholarship grant from the Goethe Henkel Foundation and Lisa Maskell Fellowships, among others. Our moderator for Panel 7 is Professor Grace Vareta Tesoro from the University of the Philippines. Vareta Tesoro is a faculty at the Archaeological Studies program, University of the Philippines. Her research interests include mortuary practices, status, identity, cosmology, and historical archaeology. She is currently the editor of Social Science Diliman since 2019. She is a member of the Society of Philippine Archaeologists from 1999. Her current projects include the following: investigating values and ethics regarding the dead in past and contemporary societies, and the Panthropocene, finding a prehistoric pantropical Anthropocene headed by Dr. Patrick Roberts of the Max Planck Institute. She edited the book Exploring Philippine Cemeteries, published in 2016 by the University of the Philippines Press. Her most recent book is titled The Ruins of Pinagbayanan, a photo essay on the archaeology of a late 19th century Philippine town, published also by the UP Press in April 2021. Once again, our panel 7, panelists and moderator.
Okay, and with that, I'll turn the floor over directly to Dr. Grace.
Hello, good day to everyone. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the female archaeologists who came before us in the 1960s and the 1970s. Dr. Rosa C.P. Tenasas, Socorro Paterno, Maribel Ongpin, and Cecilia Locsin. I would also like to acknowledge the more senior female archaeologists who work at the National Museum, Dr. Ois Bolunya, Dr. Ame Garong, Mida Cuevas, who has been working in the National Museum since the 1980s. I'd also like to acknowledge the females who received their PhDs, Pam Filona, Janine Ochoa, Gay Laxina, Andrea Halandoni, and of course, the current female PhD students, one of which is our panelist Mylene Lising, and of course, Natasha Quintanar, Kate Lim, Kat King. And forgive me if I missed anyone. So I'd like to share that we are growing. The females are growing in ASP. Okay, we have a good panel. It's a very mixed one. So we should start by, I'm going to invite the panelists to introduce themselves. So I'd like to call on Michelle Eusebio first.
Okay, good morning. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I'll add more to what were already mentioned in the introduction a while ago. So, okay, so aside as a faculty member solely affiliated with the Science and Society program, or SP, at the College of Science University in the Philippines, I'm involved in establishing the graduate program of Science, Technology, and Society, or STS, and teaching STS1, which is one of the general education courses required before they graduate. So yeah, at the moment I'm the only faculty member there, because our director and the rest of the professors teaching the course are affiliated with other colleges, institutes, and department. Also, okay, so oh yeah. Okay, so if you recall my research interest, so basically they are teams that were archaeology and STS, or Science, Technology, and Society, overlaps. So, I was involved with the I was involved previously with the pioneering archaeological science program at archaeological studies program. So this is the Philippine Bioarchaeological Initiative back in 2008 and 2010. Also, it has conceptualized a few years before that. I also joined several field work in Philippines and Vietnam. So some of the field work in the Philippines that I would like to mention the project earlier. One is Ifugal Archaeological Project, where the work in Ifugal in 2015. And when I was a student, I was also involved in the cemetery project of Dr. Grace Vareta, which one of the products was the publication of a book that she mentioned a while ago. Okay, so I had practical involvements, right? They are all pre-colonial pottery. So I previously taught archaeology undergraduate and graduate courses were.
Hello, Michelle? Okay, I think, okay. I think she is having problems with her internet connection. So may we call, may I call Shireen?
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Oh my God, what happened? Change screen.
Can you share your screen now? Okay.
Yes.
We can see it.
Sorry.
Shireen, are you there? Okay, we also lost. Okay, Michelle is back. Michelle, you're on mute, Michelle. Can you continue? Are you done, Michelle?
Apologies for my internet.
Yes.
What was the last thing I was able to mention, if I may?
Maybe you can conclude now.
Okay. Wait. Oh. Okay.
Are you done?
Not yet. So I think the last, yeah, the last thing I mentioned that the last, okay, I think to add this, I'm currently pursuing collaborations on teams that STS crosses with archaeology and or anthropology. So
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I don't know if Shireen is back, but I don't see her, so I'd like to call on Mylene.
Sorry po.
You're on mute, Mylene.
Thank you, Grace. Before anything, I'd like to congratulate Grace on being appointed. Finally, this is very happy news. As the director of ASP, this is news, of course, that I am just hearing about now. So, do you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. For some reason, I'm not be able to enlarge the thing. Earl, do you think you can coach me through? There you go. Okay, so I'm Mylene Lising. I'm an archaeologist. As the introduction said earlier, I specialize in cultural heritage management. I belong to two teams that work in Cagayan province, the Cagayan Valley, the Kalinga team, of which Marian is also a team member and head of the National Museum team assigned there. You can see on the right picture, and that's our dig director, Tomas Injico. I'm also part of Dr. Andrea Halandoni's team that recently published about the cave drawings in Peña Blanca, Cagayan. And I have a picture there that's proof that I do work in the field. Okay, so from the start, the emphasis of our work is really to get the locals informed, involved, and engaged in archaeology and in archaeological research that's being done in their towns, in their localities, in their villages. So this is what we have been doing in Kalinga since the beginning of our work there in 2015. And you're seeing here, that's Kat Manalo in the top picture. And this is us in a public school in Rizal Kalinga boundary with Solana, Cagayan. In 2017, we launched the first Humans Out of Africa exhibit about the Dimanisi hominids and the hominids that were discovered in Georgia. And it was my experiment to see if we could talk about something that is so esoteric, human evolution, ironically, archaeology, and about a place that is not so widely known to everyone, and bring it to the Philippines and talk about it and see how we can make it interesting to the public. Of course, to do this, I didn't do it alone, and I made sure that I was working with a big team comprised of many groups of people, mainly on the right side, of course, the PR and the management team, COSOS Inc., and then, of course, the archaeologists you're seeing on the top left of your screen, who helped us with bringing the sandbox archaeology to all the 7 or 8 universities that we did within 1 year. So we brought this exhibit to 8 universities within a year. We opened in Ateneo, and you're looking at this picture in the opening where we brought over the primary investigator from Dimanisi, Georgia, Dr. David Lloyd Pinitze, and you're looking at a picture that says a lot in terms of involving various sectors of people. You're looking at 3 university presidents right there. So we're talking about cooperation and collaboration. So you're looking at Dr. Vince Fabella of Jose Rizal University, Father Jet Villarin of Ateneo, and former President Alfredo Pascual of UP. You're also looking at the Ambassador and the Honorary Consul of Georgia, Ms. Gemma Araneta Cruz, who was the former Director of the National Museum, and Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City. Here we are opening the exhibit again within the same year, this time at UPASP, and Grace was here. Unfortunately, Grace is not in this picture, but in the other picture,
Hi,
Grace.
Mylene. Can you click the next so that we can see other photos? Thank you.
Okay. So we brought the exhibit to Indonesia also. These are the people that came to see the exhibit. We've engaged with business groups. You're seeing here Ramon Del Rosario. We've engaged with local government. That's the governor of Cagayan. We've engaged with prominent scientists. You're seeing Don Johansson of Lucy, Ian Tattersall, and people in Indonesia. Okay, what's happening? Okay, so again, these are my mentors, people who I've worked with, especially John DeVos, and someone who deserves his own special page, Francois Sema, who has guided me through the work that we have done, where we have, again, here you're seeing Ateneo students doing work and coming to ASP to learn. So this is what our work has been all about. Here you're looking at the tweet of UCLA Chancellor Gene Block when he came over to Manila, and Buboy and I had an opportunity to talk to the alumni of UCLA. So it's all about really working with people, engaging people, broadening the scope and the reach of archaeology. You're looking at Bea, who we have been able to send to Dimanisi, and we have sent another student since. Continuously talking to the locals, engaging the locals, and including other sectors like diplomatic. What's happening? Sorry. Hello. Okay, I'm kind of lost.
I think Earl has also shared the screen, okay, so that we can see the photos.
Okay. Was there a problem?
It was not. We don't see the
okay.
photos.
Okay, so Earl, let's just keep moving. I'm sorry about that. I was sharing screen. So again, the emphasis of our work is really in promoting collaboration, cooperation among different sectors, making archaeology relevant. So here you're looking at probably the only picture with the president of UP and the chancellor of UP Diliman in ASP. Then we've engaged all levels of kids in all levels of education, the business sector here, the Rotary Club of Manila, the oldest and the most powerful Rotary Club in Asia, prominent scientists worldwide. And these are people, there's John DeVos, one of my mentors, and Francois Sema, my biggest mentor. Please go on, Earl. I'll just keep talking. So again, collaboration, that's Ateneo students. I already mentioned that in UP. We've sent students to Dmanisi, Georgia. We continuously engage with local people in Cagayan, and this is at CSU. Keep going, Earl. And then this is the Czech Republic. Hold on. Embassy donating books. We've engaged with media, and here we have again one of my mentors, Dr. Victor Paz. So we engage with media, and with us here is a film producer, Manette Dairet. Go on, Earl, please. Next slide. So we continue, and this is we built this exhibit in Kalinga in 2015. Please go on, Earl. Next slide, please. And in 2018, the biggest project I ever embarked in got a 100,000 euro grant from the Gerda Henkel Foundation to build the Rizal Kalinga Library for Rizal Kalinga, where we have been working since 2014. Next slide, please. And the most emotional moment of my life as an archaeologist is when we opened it and the kids came to the library. And next slide, please. And the teachers registered, got their library cards. They were so happy. This library has 18 internet-able computers, more than even Tuguegarao City Public Library. Next slide, please. So here we are at the opening, and that's Governor Tuban of Kalinga, who was our special guest. Next slide, please. Then we were able to engage the scientists who came for the Homo Luzonensis conference in February 2020. And we were able to bring them to the site in Kalinga and also to visit the public library. Next slide. And then COVID happened. And so the biggest question was, how do we go about with our work? And so we shifted online. Next slide, please. And we've since engaged and with different sectors. Here you're looking at the Vice President, Lenny Robredo, who was then looking for ways to address learning online for students. And that's my nephew, who's a high school student on the left side. Next slide, please. So we've been looking for solutions within this COVID situation, and during which we launched the Cagayan Heritage Conversation series, and we had 30 talks. Among them, of course, was Dr. Grace Barreto here. As you can see, she gave us a talk about archaeology in the historical period. Next slide, please. And you'll see we were able to engage over 39,000 in the end. But you're looking at here is a slide of all our talks, well, some of our talks, and you will see that we started with a few talks. It was supposed to run until August 19, and then it became August, and it ended August 5, August 19, and then we ended up ending in August 26. So what we have seen from this experience is that there is a clamor for education and sharing, collaboration of archaeological heritage and cultural heritage in general. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Okay, so again here, another female speaker. This is just to show you how multifaceted our work is. We also included this talk on negotiation and essential skills and strategy. So we're not just focusing on on archaeology per se. We are trying to broaden the perspective. Okay, next slide, please.
Hi, Mylene. We have more.
Participants?
Hi, yeah. Mylene. Are you kindly conclude? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So keep going, Earl. Let's finish. And we've continued to engage with Kalinga, helping them with the new design of their provincial seal. Next slide. And I think this is that's our team on the last season when we left Kalinga. We don't know when we're going to be back, but until then, we try to adapt to what we have online. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for the delay.
Okay, thank you. Marion Reyes, are you ready?
Yes, good morning, good evening. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so yes, I'm a senior museum researcher at the Archaeology Division of the National Museum of the Philippines, or NMP. As a young archaeologist in training at the UPASP, where I took graduate studies, I was able to work on structural remains in Old Pinagbayanan in San Juan, Batangas with Dr. Barreto Tesoro. That's a nice backfield day photo showing our field school batch composed of 8 students with 7 females, 1 male on the left, and 1 who did not finish and is not included in the photo. Also joining us in this photo are trench supervisors and the curious neighborhood kids from that town. I've also joined in prehistoric rock shelter shell maiden site surveys and excavations in Mylene Island for the Mindoro project with Doctors Philip Piper and Alfred Pavlik. That was my first stint after field school. Buwis Buhay. That's on a ledge of a cliff that I wouldn't show my parents ever. And that's also when I became acquainted with small mammal remains. As a part of a bunch of volunteers for several seasons, I was able to join the Ifugao Archaeology project spearheaded by Dr. Acabado at the settlement site of Old Kiangan village in the rice terraces in Kiangan. Until I became part of the NMP, where I continued working on my small mammal research. That was during a short visiting scholarship program at the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, where I looked at amazing and comprehensive Philippine collection of rodents and bats under the guidance of Dr. Larry Heaney. This study resulted in a thesis, the first to explore the potential of micromammal remains from the archaeological record to understand past biogeography in the area. A paper on the first fossil evidence of an island endemic cloud rat species, Crateromys polus, deemed possibly extinct, was also published, as well as the co-authored Cagayan Buot paper with Dr. Ochoa, Dr. Heaney, and several colleagues working on Cagayan and zoo archaeological finds. I also became part of a task force on Benguet mummies research, conducting an assessment of mummies, their condition status, and possible conservation solutions in the cave sites of Timbak and Bugias. Also part of the team with Dr. Toma Enjico and Mylene Lising here, working on the 709,000-year-old site in Rizal Municipality, Kalinga, where rhinoceros fossils with evidence of butchery were found in association with stone tools, currently the earliest evidence of hominin activity in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. So, Maddie, it's your turn. Maddie. Okay, we're having technical problems now. Maddie? Okay, my tech problems si Maddie. Shireen, your turn before we call Maddie.
Hi, sorry about that. Are we still on me?
I called Shireen, but I think her screen is not working. So Maddie,
I guess we're all having technical difficulties today.
Yeah.
Had to switch over to a different device, but I can go ahead
Okay.
while we
Yes,
wait for
yes,
her.
please
if
go
that's
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Okay. So first of all, like I said in my other introduction, I'm super grateful to share this space with the ladies of Philippine Archaeology, most of you whom I've worked with in some kind of capacity, either in the field. Mylene and I have a shared publication together where you can read about her work in Kalinga, the library she talked about, and also my work on the Bicol Archaeological project. So I don't have slides to show today, but I do want to talk about some of the projects that I started out working on in my early career and the projects that I'm working on now. So just like Ian mentioned, and I worked on the Ifugao Archaeological Project. I worked there with Dr. Acabado. Dr. Grace was also part of that, Michelle and Ian. And so that project was where I really started my training in archaeology and where I really started getting my interest in wanting to combine heritage and archaeology together. As a scholar that's based in the US, grew up in the US, I identify as American Filipino. It's really important for me and my work to kind of bring meaning and purpose back into why we start these projects, what's the end goal, what does that process like? And I'm really grateful to the Ifugao Archaeological Project for setting such a strong foundation for that. And that project was what helped me develop the Bicol Archaeological Project with Dr. Acabado. And so that's the project I've been working on for the last couple years. The Bicol Archaeological Project is primarily based in Camarines Sur, and that's a collaboration between UCLA, Partido State University, and the Archdiocese of Cáceres. We've been excavating in Camarines Sur since 2017. We initially did surveys in 2016. And what that project is trying to do is to investigate early Spanish Catholic churches in the region. And so we have a goal of excavating at some of the earliest church sites to try and gain an understanding of how Indigenous people in Bicol, how early Bicolanos or pre-Spanish Bicolanos shifted and adapted their lifestyles during the Spanish period and beyond. And from that project, that's how I developed my dissertation at UCLA. So I am a PhD candidate in the anthropology department there. And my project is looking at Catholic devotion to Our Lady of Peñafrencha. So happy fiesta to any of the Bicolanos watching right now, since we just concluded the novena and fiesta for Our Lady of Peñafrencha. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I couldn't be there. But that project is also looking at early responses to Spanish Catholicism, Spanish colonialism, and how that icon developed over several hundred years. And as an archaeologist, I'm really interested in this devotion, in this shift over time, because this fiesta, like other fiestas and icons in the Philippines, has a really rich material culture. There's a lot of different artifacts surrounding this devotion. And what's unique about Bicol is how it is this fiesta, this icon, this material culture is also tied to the landscape and the place. And that's what I'm interested in. And some of the other projects I'm working on too is developing field schools to bring Filipino American students to the Philippines. So through the Bicol Archaeological Project, we are trying to kind of bring the connection between Filipinos in the US and Filipino scholars in the Philippines. There's a lot of Filipinos in Los Angeles, so I'm really grateful to be in Southern California and to be able to kind of work with these communities.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Do you want to add more, Matt? Or yeah, are you done, Maddie?
Nope, that's all.
All right, Shireen, maybe you can introduce yourself. Okay, all right.
Just open my second screen, ma'am. Good day, everyone. Again, my name is Shireen Diamboi, and I am a current instructor at the Department of History of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. As said earlier, I recently finished my diploma in archaeology at the Archaeological Studies program of the University of the Philippines. And presently, I'm working on my Master's of Arts in Archaeology at the same institution. Momentarily, I am the only female archaeologist and probably the first, though not certain yet, in our university. The MA in archaeology, which I'm taking up right now, is already my second master's degree. Sadly, unlike the other presenter today, due to the pandemic, my archaeological experience is limited under my field school in 2019 in Alubihid, Misamis Oriental, under Dr. Lee. So this is our photos during our field school. And then the next experience is during the last Katanawan excavation, early January, our pre-pandemic excavation. So that's all, Ma'am Grace.
Okay, thank you very much, Shireen. So we have 5 blocks, and I'd like to remind all attendees, if you have questions, kindly type them in the Q&A box. So for the first block, our first question is why or what are the factors that made you pursue the discipline? And in your view, prior to your entry to the discipline, were you aware that it was male-dominated? And if not, what made you aware that it was male-dominated? Ian, I'd like to call Ian first.
I'll just read a prepared answer so it will be easier. I did not have a preconceived notion of what female archaeologists or archaeologists were in the Philippines prior to entering the discipline. However, I came from a similar field, anthropology, and it was during a 3-month stay for a field school of anthropology where I met the discipline through a group of NMP archaeologists who taught us the basics. And it was after a decade almost that same group of archaeologists who mentored and inspired me to enter the discipline would become my colleagues back at the agency. So it's probably a mix of my interest in the unconventional, aka not bandwagon, because during that time nursing was on. So I was thinking of what discipline is not really in, and lack of opportunities for forensic anthropologists because I wanted to pursue that initially. My thirst for adventure, my inquisitive mind, and my parents' aversion to their children playing with soil led me to this discipline. It was only looking back that I realized that I only know of one female archaeologist who I encountered as a professor at ASP, and that's you, Ma'am Grace. So yes.
Right, thank you, Ian. Maddie, how about you?
I think when I first started, I think 10 years ago when I first became interested in archaeology, like Ian, a lot of people who come to this were interested in kind of something exciting, something different than the other career options that we see. And archaeology as a feasible career in the Philippines, it didn't really occur to me until I saw a posting for the Ifugao Archaeological project. I had never put those two ideas together, that there was archaeology in the Philippines. And so when I started working in the Philippines, I don't think it occurred to me, at least in the first year, that there was an issue of women representation, because my first field school, all of the people who taught me, besides our PI, they were women. Ian, you were one of them, Mom Grace, you were there. And so I think it wasn't until I was kind of deep into into being an archaeologist where, we would enter a space and I'd be the only woman there. And so I think that was something that kind of came on a little bit later. But I think the pressure is more on people who are in positions of power in the discipline to kind of make these spaces inclusive and ones that we want to be in and feel safe in, and can also eventually hold positions of power too.
Okay, thank you, Maddie. Michelle, you want to answer?
Yes, I was not aware that archaeology is a gender gender-specific dominated discipline. Well, to be honest, I pursued archaeology because it is where I wanted to make good use of my chemistry background after encountering literature on the chemical applications in archaeology. Then I heard when I was graduating in BS chemistry, I heard there was the chemical and conservation laboratory of National Museum of the Philippines. So wow, there's a chemical lab there, and then I saw that that the University of the Philippines has archaeological studies program and offering graduate degrees in archaeology. So wow, they all came together, and this is on top of I always wanted I'm all to learn more about history, including past lifeways. But when I entered youth archaeological studies program, well, there were two male professors interviewed me, and it happened that all of my teachers were males. It's probably because when I entered back in 2002, Mayor Joy Belmonte, she was a professor back then at Archaeological Studies program. She was not teaching there anymore. But as I go along and I get to know more female archaeologists who are researchers, and some of them became faculty members or lecturers, like Dr. Grace Vareta or Tesoro, and then the researchers at the National Museum and fellow students who are, a lot of them are females and of other gender identities. Well, I actually don't think that the field is male dominated. And I actually remember, I kind of recall exactly when Mayor Joy Belmonte of Quezon City, like in one of her speeches, she said that there are more women archaeologists than males. So yeah, so I think that.
Thank you, Michelle. That's a different perspective. Okay, Mylene?
Thanks, Grace. To give a better perspective of where I'm coming from, I grew up in the province in Tuguegarao, Cagayan, where our environment was dominated by the nuns of St. Paul. So I never felt that being female was a disadvantage. And even when I entered archaeology, as with all the other fields that I had gotten into before archaeology, those who are close to me here, Grace, Ian, you know that I came into archaeology quite late. Most of the fields that I've been into have been male dominated anyway, and that's just how society has shaped up to be, and this is where we're ending up now. If it was a given that it was a male-dominated field, it really didn't matter to me. I decided to pursue and to focus on cultural heritage management because I saw that there was a lot of awesome information in archaeology. And my question was, do people know about this? Are we talking about this? Does the public know about this? And the answer was no. So, hey, why don't we tell people? Why don't we make this relevant? How does this information serve the bigger public? And that's how I ended up in cultural heritage management. Whether it's male dominated or not was never a factor. I've worked in politics, in media. Maybe the least male dominated field I've ever worked in is interior design, where I have a professional license for interior design, but it was never a factor. The factor really that drove me to archaeology was so much information, so awesome, so interesting. Who knows about this? Who understands this? And that's I'm here today with you.
Thank you, Mylene. So that's a different perspective again. Shireen?
Hello. My interest in the field of archaeology started way back in 2012 when I was an intern at the Archaeology Division of the National Museum of the Philippines. Right then, I was still taking up Bachelor of Arts in History at PUP. As an intern, I met different people and listened to their field stories. The staff of the museum showed me where they conducted restoration and preservation. Most of the times, we heard stories or recollection from our male supervisor. Later, we met Ma'am Owis and Ma'am Ami. Yet at that time, I was not still aware that this field was male dominated. I never knew actually that there was a program of archaeology in the Philippines, not until our former department chair, Dr. Raul Sebastian, and the current dean of the college introduced me to Dr. Zeus Salazar, the proponent of Pantayang Pananaw. Doc Zaz brought us to ASP where we met Ma'am Grace um, at that time. So together with another junior colleague in the department of history, I was motivated to apply and hence took up diploma in archaeology sometime in 2018. Later, I realized that gender was not really or a hampering factor in this field. I observed that what the men could do could also be done by women. Women could also do heavy chores in the field, like collecting, showing excavated soil, from our trench, or bringing heavy tools in the field. Actually, women could do all those male kind of work without exemption in our field works in Alubihid, Misamis Oriental, and our excavation in Catanawan. I observed in my field school that there is a growing number of female participants. In fact, they have bested the men in numbers. So actually, we're like eight female and then 6 or 7 male co-field schooler. Thus, the equal opportunities in treatment accorded by me, I have never received nor experienced any gender discrimination among my brothers in the field. Because of my experience in archaeology, I'm also trying to inspire and motivate people and women to witness or participate in archaeological process in the field so they will also pursue the program like me.
Well, thank you very much, Shireen. Okay, to our next question. Can you describe the challenges and opportunities of being a female archaeologist in the Philippines based on your experiences? Let's start with Maddie.
Sorry, I cut out. Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Can you describe the challenges and opportunities of being a female archaeologist in the Philippines based on your experiences?
Okay, so challenges, to start with challenges, I think I agree with like what Shireen said. Archaeology is a really great opportunity to kind of, I think, break traditional gender norms. I've definitely also been in situations like that where typically probably wouldn't step up to do maybe more of like the physical things or other things like that. And archaeology is a great place to be able to do that and meet other like-minded women who want to do that thing, those types of things. But some challenges that I've faced have been, I think they're often kind of subtle. I've also had the privilege to work with a lot of really great people who always made the environments that I worked in really safe, but sometimes those subtleties of maybe biases people would have kind of present themselves. And while on the outside of like a project might seem like it's running really great, everyone's getting along, I've had situations sometimes where students wouldn't kind of trust what I was saying. And then a male colleague might say the exact same thing or ask them to do the exact same thing, and then they would listen to them. And whether that was based on, you know, my gender or my age, either way, it presents challenges when I'm put in a position of authority and these kind of subtle biases are affecting how people interact with me. And I think those subtle kind of issues are pervasive, because on the surface, some people might say, oh, I'm very inclusive, or I'm fine working with you, I trust you. But that's something that we all kind of have to address, is how do our subtle biases, if we've kind of grown up with them, how can we keep them from invading these new spaces that we're making and these projects that we're working on? And the second half of the question, the opportunities, I think the opportunities are, there's lots of things for women to study. I think, and one of the benefits of, you know, me personally being at UCLA is there's a whole center for the study of women. And, you know, that's an opportunity for students. If your university has other similar things, archaeology is a great discipline to work in, because you can collaborate with other departments, other groups who focus on these types of research questions that, you know, women might want to pursue, like looking at women who occupied archaeological sites. There's all these different projects that we are in a really good opportunity to pursue. And there are lots of like research funding and opportunities for women to study projects focusing on women.
Thank you, Maddie. Michelle, how about you? Your views, please.
Okay, so based from my experience, I think opportunities and challenges that came to me are not because of me being a woman. So here in the Philippines, I think they are more circumstantial for me. So for example, I could not join archaeological fieldwork back then because I had a Monday to Friday day job, like in an office or laboratory, and or I was seen as not suitable to join fieldwork in very challenging locations. But maybe something to do with my perceived physical strength and capabilities. So in the US, the factor for me was more about ethnicity instead of gender. Like, for example, I was not given opportunities to teach classes or handle discussion sections as a teaching assistant because I came from the region which is not the aerial specialty of the department. So what I mean was the opportunities were biased towards my fellow students who happen to came from the area where they have research specialty. So yeah, it's more of the where I came from, not about the gender.
Thanks,
But
Michelle.
yeah,
Mylene? I'm sorry, you want to add, Michelle?
Yeah, but speaking of opportunities, yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities that are not biased against the gender of who wants to avail them in general. So that's it.
Thanks, Michelle. Mylene, how about you?
Thanks, Grace. Well, I think more than ever, it's a good time to be in archaeology or in any field that you're interested in for women. The playing field is more even than ever before. Having said that, of course, we acknowledge those who have come before us and who put in the sacrifices before us to put up with all the shit. I'm sorry, pardon my French, but that, you know, women in the earlier stages of archaeology in the Philippines had to go through, and it applies to other fields as well. Like, for example, Grace and I are more or less the same age, but Grace has been there longer than I have, and she's had to put up maybe with a lot of those things, which I didn't have to put up with anymore because I came into this late. I mean, I've been here for only 10 years maybe. Now, in terms of challenges of being a female in the field, I can't speak for the younger generation like sila Marian. Ian can probably talk about that more than me because my challenges being a woman of this age, I'm menopausal. So I have a different set of challenges in the sense that it's more of physical ability, patience, and hormones related than it is being gender centered or gender related. I have not had an experience in the field or otherwise where it has been disadvantages to me because I'm a woman. In fact, maybe that has been an advantage. I've been able to talk to every single person in the field of archaeology or fields related to archaeology that I wanted to talk to. I don't know if it has anything to do with being a woman. I hope not, but I think it also has something to do with the work that you put in. If people see that you are serious in your work, it doesn't matter if you're female or male, and then it's a meritocracy. It's based on merit. Your work is solid, then they will talk to you, rather than complain that I'm at a disadvantage because I'm female and so and so. I've not encountered that. I'll be honest with you. Again, I make saludo to those who've come before us because I know that the situation was probably very different for them then. And it's because of that things are easy for me now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mylene. I think we're breaking myths here with your views, with everyone's views. So I'd like to call on Shireen, please.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank all those female archaeologists who finished their degree and started their project in the Philippines, because as a the younger generation, a female archaeologist, I never encountered any gender biases, maybe because of those female archaeologists establish their ability and their they've proven a lot in this discipline prior to my engaging to archaeology.
Thank you. Ian?
Apart from the physical issues or concerns shared by or mentioned by Michelle and Mylene a while ago, not personally, but I also hear of concerns being a female archaeologist who's married or with familial obligations, especially when going to the field. Though it may be a challenge, I think it is workable because I know of colleagues who have done it, but also there are those who have yet to return to the practice. I've heard of stories about these colleagues even letting their kids experience the field. Maybe the pressure of being a mom or being while in the field-related occupation, staying with the kid is indeed a challenge, especially in the early years of rearing the child. But in terms of the sites and communities that I've worked or engaged with, it's usually case-to-case basis, especially when building rapport with the locals, etc. So it depends on which community or on which teams you go with, how you will be received. So it's not about really you being a female and your capabilities, your physical strength, etc. So it's also the skills that you possess, communication skills, excavation skills, field methods, etc. that will work well while you are in the field. And also women can lead or co-direct excavations. And are good managers and multitaskers. So it goes handy while you're doing a field work. For opportunities, women archaeologists, like male archaeologists, may work as part of projects and contracts, including consultancies, as an independent, fully funded researcher, or in the academe or in cultural or heritage centers and institutions like museums and national agencies.
Thank you, Ian. So in the US, almost 45% of the archaeological community are females, but the academy is still male dominated. In the Philippines, I think only a few of us are working in the university. And at the moment, I do not know the others, but I'm the only woman tenured in an archaeology faculty. So the question is, how can we provide more opportunities for women to enter the university as a tenure track or tenured faculty? Or the question, another follow-up question is, maybe there are other avenues for female archaeologists, and what are these avenues, or is the university the primary and only goal? Maddie?
So I think in order to kind of make archaeology more of a place where women can be in those positions of power, because, you know, kind of like Michelle said, there seems to be there are a lot of women in archaeology, but a big problem is that women are not dominating those positions of power. They're not tenure track. They're not always, with the case of yourself, except for the case of yourself, they're not directors of departments or institutions. And that's where we need more growth. And I think to kind of increase the ability for women to be into those spaces is for others to kind of understand the challenges that we face. Like Ian mentioned, it's normal for people to want families, to want to have kids, to want to pursue other things in their personal life. And those are typically things that are thought of to hold women back in academia. And I think kind of acknowledging those challenges and making space for them to happen, being more understanding as opposed to punishing people when maybe they can't make deadlines or they can't always participate in fieldwork all the time. Understanding those challenges and being able to work around them and with the women. so that they can, or acknowledging that women can kind of juggle these two jobs at once. And women have been doing it for a long time and are often more than up to the challenge. And then as to whether academia is the only route, I think it's really important for archaeologists to kind of, and for other companies, disciplines, nonprofits to understand the benefit that an archaeologist can have to their team, what we can provide, that there are lots of different dynamic things that we can do in regards to heritage, in regards to government work. There are contributions that we can make. And I think women today need to also be able to see that maybe academia, that's not the only place, that's not the only role we can fill. And we should be able to kind of try out these different things and not just follow that specific path that has been laid out so long, from undergrad to grad school to a tenure track position, that maybe there are lots of other stops along the way, and those can only enrich our CVs, enrich our resumes, enrich our experience and what we have to give to research and to the communities that we work in. And I think people really just need to kind of understand those dynamics a bit more to kind of see what opportunities we have in front of us.
Okay, thank you, Maddie. Ian, who works in the National Museum.
Perhaps I'll just share my experience working in the museum, and not from a perspective working in the academe. So since the NMP is an educational, scientific, and cultural institution and a national agency mandated to be the custodians of the Philippines' natural and cultural treasures and heritage, we respond to the needs of different clients that may be similar to or also different with other institutions. In terms of research, while we conduct our own, we also respond to requests for assessments. We create or we do collaborations from government units and other local and international institutions. We also have programs, activities, and plans developed especially for our clients who are the viewers of our exhibitions, who attend lectures, and who use other educational tools. We also accommodate archaeological inquiries from researchers, students, parents of students, media, schools, and needing immersions and practicums. Though the demand is high, similar also to the academe, we try to balance these responsibilities and tasks as we also try to reach more people of different ages, different genders, different ethnicities, and interests, even during these challenging times. When I was pursuing archaeology, I was not really focused on finishing and then going into the academe, because I know that there are other avenues that I could pursue. So yes, and then I entered NMP, which is an ultimate goal. So yes, there are other avenues if you look for it.
Okay, thank you, Ian. How about Mylene?
Thanks, Grace. I agree with Maddie and Ian, especially with what Maddie said. Factoring that in, I guess it boils down to choice. For the women today who would like to get into archaeology, what is your choice given these factors in your environment? And then speaking about position of power, what is this position of power anyway? Again, as Maddie pointed out in the end of what she said, is academe really the only place where you can play out this position of power, or are there other avenues for this where you can influence or make a change or develop more people who would be interested in archaeology or heritage management? So what are you willing to give in exchange for this? We have been brought up, up to my age group, I can say we've been brought up in a society where we're expected to get married at a certain age, have kids, and that comes into play especially when you choose a career like archaeology, because you will be expected, the job expects you to be in the field for a certain period of time during the year. And if you have more than one project, then that's a longer period of time away from your family. So it boils down to, what do you choose? Does it have to be a choice? I'll be realistic about it. Yes, it is a choice. And I say that from experience. I just have had the benefit of having a very supportive family, husband, and support system in which the Philippines affords for a lot of us here in the Philippines. But if you are coming from a different reality, a different environment, what are your choices and how are you going to navigate around these factors? And if you're able to answer that, then you can decide for yourself. If you want to be on the tenure track, then be on the tenure track if that's where you think you're going to be good. If you want to go work for the National Museum, like Ian is one of the best managers. She's a really good organizer. I've been with her in the field. Really, so there are many ways, many avenues, like Maddie said. And like me personally, I don't want to be on tenure track because I think the responsibility is too much for me and what I want to do with my life. Whereas for Grace, for instance, finally and fantastic, congratulations. And this is a big deal for archaeology in the Philippines and for female archaeologists in the Philippines. So it's really a choice.
I was appointed.
Finally,
Michelle,
I
do
mean,
you want to add to this?
yes, to address the question, it's quite a huge question with several sub questions. So yeah, I would like to acknowledge that there are other female archaeologists who are also tenured faculty members in other departments or universities, like they were already mentioned before. So Dr. Janine Ochoa, she's a tenured faculty at Department of Anthropology, UP Diliman, which upholds to the four-field tradition of anthropology that includes archaeology. Also, there's Professor Andrea Malaya Zagradio of Department of Social Sciences at UP Mindanao, and Dr. Pamela Pailona of Faculty of Behavioral and Social Science, College of Teacher Development in Philippine Normal University. In terms of the tenure track faculty, I believe that Dr. Ligaya Laksina is a new tenure track faculty at Archaeological Studies program. In my case, I'm also tenure track at the College of Science, and I think there are several others. So in addressing how can we provide more opportunities for women to enter university archaeology programs as tenure track or tenured faculty, the cliche or the off the get-go answer will be there should be more archaeology programs established in other universities. However, opportunities for women archaeologists and others of different gender identities to enter universities or higher education institutions should not be limited to archaeology and anthropology departments only. Archaeology, being a transdisciplinary discipline, aside from being multi and interdisciplinary one, provides opportunities for archaeologists of different gender identities to thrive in non-archaeology or anthropology programs or departments. In my case, I am very thankful for the opportunity given by the College of Science since 2018, headed back then by Dean Perry Ong, for the opportunity to contribute to the teaching and establishing the graduate program of Science, Technology, and Society, or STS, as an archaeologist, which I myself was even surprised because it did not cross my mind back then when I was doing my PhD in University of Florida to consider STS as another field of interest event. So for other avenues for female archaeologists outside the university, I think, well, of course, there are the museums like Marion Reyes, and if I understand right, doctors always Bolunia and Amigaro are in their permanent or tenured position in the National Museum. So Marian could correct me if I'm wrong. And there are also the contract firms, and I think the government agencies like the NCCA or National Commission for the Culture of the Arts, and maybe Department of Environment and and natural resources. I think they would need archaeology, so hence they should open opportunities for them. So recently, we are all concerned that the regulatory function of National Museum for Archaeological Fieldwork and Research was recently transferred to NCCA, and obviously the NCCA would need archaeologists to be on board in terms of crafting policies for how to make archaeological research smoothly in the Philippines, and for the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, I think having archaeologists there will provide assurance that the environmental impact assessments are always being done with the archaeological impact assessments, because for most of the time it's not. So yeah, so
Okay.
that's all.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I think the last part of what you said are wish lists, and we hope we can have plenty of positions for this in the different government agencies. Shireen?
I'm well, I'm in the academe setup, so I'm not thinking. I can't think of any other work so far not related to archaeology. But I am so happy to see my former. We have a lot of female field schooler who were in the academe and now currently teaching in UPMIN. I have my friend there teaching, I think, anthropology. But as a presently married woman, I am happy that my husband support me in pursuing my career here in archaeology, and he supports my decision in pursuing my career as an academician in PUP. That's all, my grace.
Okay, thank you, Shireen. So we have around 20 minutes more, and we have still several questions. We need 10 minutes for the Q&A, so I'm going to call on the next person who will answer the next question. I think this is for Mylene. How do you re-examine and re-evaluate the role, value, and influence of women in archaeology in the context of contemporary society in the Philippines and world?
That's a thesis dissertation. How do I re-examine?
Re-evaluate the role. Yes.
Well, okay. Look, we are in this. Well, first of all, I guess we need to acknowledge the world we live in. What is the reality we live in right now? Not what we wish it to be, not what we want it to be, not what it was, not what it says in the movies, but what is it really? So I guess we really need to develop the ability to look at things objectively. I'm not saying I'm good at it, but I'm saying maybe that's what we need to do, because I really need to do that too. And then from there, when you do an objective assessment of the things around you, the threats, the opportunities, then that's how you can come up with something that you can shape your own environment, create your environment. I hope I'm not saying this coming from a position of privilege, just because I didn't go through the difficulties that other females may have gone through. But at the end of the day, and this is coming from a 51-year-old who has been through several fields to several disciplines, from media to archaeology to design. And now the academe, a lot of these things are shaped by society, and it's up to you. What are you willing to accept, and what do you not want to accept? And if you don't want to accept it, what are you willing to do and to give to change that? And that's up to you. And I know it's easier said than done. Shit, yes, it's easier said than done. You have to drag yourself through a lot of shit to get what you want. But at the end of the day, what are you willing to do? And nothing, whether, I guess, Grace, I'm sorry, just a few more minutes, just a minute more. Whether you're female or male, and you look through history at all these people who have made a difference, who have created the difference, who have created a new reality, what sacrifices did they make? And what were they willing to give, to do, to get to where they're at, to make the contribution that they wanted to contribute. So at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if we're male or female. It just so happens that we have a certain situation because we are female. But then, put that in your assessment, factor that in, and then create your environment based on that.
Okay, thank you, Mylene. Ian.
I think Mylene put it very well. I'm good. I'm good with that answer too. That's also what's in my mind.
Okay, Maddie.
I'm gonna second Ian and say
All right.
Mylene put it very well.
Okay, thank you. I think we should go to the next one. Women provide unique perspectives in archaeological interpretation. What themes do you think will help move the discipline forward in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia? And how can women make changes to how archaeologists practice in the Philippines? I'd like to call Michelle for this one.
Okay, so I think my first part of the answer dovetails to the first question. So there are admirable women archaeologists in doing Southeast Asia archaeological research that advocated for bottom-up approaches, because in Southeast Asia it's always about the big picture, the top-down approaches. Like, for example, you hear more about the migration of people with language, culture, and stuff like that. So, but there are other research teams. So the bottom-up approaches that were advocated by the likes of Dr. Joyce White, Dr. Miriam Stark, Dr. Alison Carter, and Dr. Rasmi Shukandede of Thailand. They advocated for bottom-up approaches that focus on or more nuanced system that even lay people can relate to, like the everyday life and the experience of the people in the past, and in terms of environment, like how humans actually adapted to the environment, what were their experience like, and also so what more perspectives? Like, I think the women doing Philippines and Southeast Asia archaeology should advocate more for including gender approaches or philosophies and theories drawing from feminist and gender studies in archaeological research and interpretation or narrative. So relevant themes that will help archaeology move forward in the Philippines and Southeast Asia are, for example, about questioning gender stereotypes in the past, like you question like are the hunters always male, and the gatherers always female, etc., or universality, or we question the universality of gender constructions. Also, recently some of the bioarchaeologists working in Southeast Asia, they are taking on themes like caring for elders, children, and infants, and other themes that we can consider, if possible, are how gender plays a significant role in the differential maintenance and transmission of indigenous knowledge, differential response and adaptation to environment and climate change according to gender, role of gender in food waste and food security, different vulnerabilities and capacities to face disasters according to different gender identities, and how spaces and places are divided according to gender differences. So in this way, women can demonstrate that archaeology is transdisciplinary, where it can be relevant in addressing contemporary concerns related to gender issues. So the nice thing about archaeology is it has the advantage of the diachronic or long-term perspective of dealing with various current issues that are, in essence, not actually different from the past. Hence, gender approaches in archaeology may help integrate gender consideration into policymaking and other contemporary endeavors. So,
thank you, Michelle. I think you covered everything, so I won't ask the others anymore.
And lastly, there's a publication in the Archaeologist Journal by by Maureen Moen in 2019 that she said that women should also advocate for stopping the treatment of gender archaeology as a sub-discipline, since gender should be an essential part of any archaeological study. So hope we can do it.
Thank you, Michelle. How about the others? Do you want to add to that?
May I, Grace?
Okay, Mylene.
Thank you. I think one way that could enhance women's participation in archaeology and push forward the agenda of archaeology is to one, support each other, and number two, develop critical thinking, critical analysis. We need more people to do this so that we have a better understanding of what we are doing. And lastly, please ask more questions that are relevant to more people, and that would be of use to the world around us today. Not only to answer your personal questions, but hopefully, or if you do have personal questions about evolution or past societies, if you can find a way to answer this in such a way that it is relevant to the community around you or the bigger community of, well, the world or humanity in general. I guess that would be one way to push the agenda of archaeology, by making it mean something to more people beyond ourselves.
Thank you, Mylene. So in connection to what you said, so how do we bring archaeology closer to the general or wider public? And how do we define the public? Maybe, yes, Ian.
By reaching out to the public, by making people, yes, understand in their own language how archaeology and heritage is relevant for the appreciation of our past and our nation. And at the NMP, pre-COVID times, we had curator tours where we guided groups of museum viewers in our exhibits and presented talks. So we engaged them in archaeology and our cultural past. The online version of that right now is what we're doing, the weekly social media feature called Travel Tuesdays, where we have thematic topics depending on celebrations, commemorations, and the like. So we try as much as possible to make content that the people could understand, could appreciate, and share to a wider audience. And we also try to engage them through comments, etc., when they give feedback to our posts.
Thank you, Ian. Yes,
all right. Yeah. So as Ian said, it's by we do this by continuously engaging with the public, and there are different sizes, different spheres of the public, from village scale to town, province, regional, the whole country. People are already doing it, like what Maddie is doing in Bicol. A lot of people have started doing it, but we also have to develop programs to train more people who will focus on doing this. Because right now, reaching the people, public archaeology, it's everybody's favorite sideline, really. Who's focused on doing this, really? When I decided to focus on this, I was looked down upon. I mean, people said, how is this archaeology? How is it not? Right? I mean, archaeology is funded normally by public funds, by grants. So how can you make it just for yourself? You're not funding it yourself. So it better be of relevance to other people. It better serve a bigger purpose than just self-serving. So, no judgment, okay? I appreciate the researchers who focus on each sphere of research that you are dedicated to, and that's wonderful. We need that. But archaeology has had this character of priding itself in being so esoteric. I think we should get out of that and make this information, this wonderful information, knowledge that we have, and make it more accessible to people so that more people can appreciate it, and we can develop a better understanding of what it means to be human. because after all, we are studying humans.
Mom Grace, you're muted.
Thank you, Mylene, for that insightful view. Maddie, your turn. You've been working with different groups since you came to the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How do you, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to add on. I 100% agree with you, Mylene, and also Ian. It's our duty, basically, as archaeologists, to make not just our research available to the right audiences, available to the public, but to also make archaeology engaging with the communities that we work in, both in Ifugao and in Bicol on the projects that I worked on. And I know a lot of other projects use this practice too. It's standard too at the end of a field season to share your research with the community that you worked in at the end of the project. And then also at the beginning of the project, it's important to include these stakeholders in what kinds of things do they want? What are their expectations out of this project? Most of us as archaeologists, we're outsiders. We're not from these communities. And even if we are from them, we don't represent as an individual what this entire community wants us to do with this knowledge, with their cultural materials and their cultural heritage. And so it's really important to make archaeology as accessible to the right people as possible. And of course, there are limitations and boundaries to this. We also have a duty to, indigenous groups or groups who want to keep certain things private or to keep certain things safe. Archaeology is notoriously, their sites are looted, things happen. And so it's important to kind of walk that line where you're both protecting the community and the site, but also still making it public and accessible. And I want to also echo what was said in the previous panel, in panel 6. Archaeology is a long-term commitment. I think it was Peter Leip who said it. When you start an archaeological project, you're pretty much in it for the long run. And if you're the type of archaeologist who just kind of comes and goes, then we're just repeating the same mistakes that other archaeologists in the past 100 years have made, and repeating that kind of colonial mentality of extracting information and leaving and keeping it, like Mylene said, in that esoteric way where it's only available to academics. And it's our responsibility to kind of break those stereotypes, to make archaeology more inclusive, more accessible, to foster those relationships long-term, to stay invested with good intention, to take the research that we do and put it in other places. Like we've said before, academia is not the only place, it's not the only room that archaeology can sit in. Yes, that's where it was born, but that's not where its future is. And the future of archaeology is really in a lot of different places. And it's kind of up to us to allocate where those energies go, and, make sure that they're going to places where people are interested to know them.
Thank you, Maddie. Shireen, you want to share how you reach out to the public?
Actually, I have 2 platforms in bringing archaeology to the public sphere. One is by serving as an instructor of the discipline in PUP, who motivates and inspires students who have passion in archaeology. Recently, one of my former students in a minor subject in PUP is now a graduate student of ASP. He then told me that he wanted likewise to be an archaeologist. So the pictures I posted in my social media account while participating in excavation. Probably the student was able to savor the joy that he observed from my face, because daily in our field school, I like posting photos in my Instagram and my Facebook account. And aside from that, he told me that he was really curious about the Homo luzinensis. 2, I would like to expand the scope of my social media accounts. There, I would like to post blogs about my experiences as a young archaeologist in the Philippines. Actually, I posted a video about my 2 years journey as an archaeologist in ASP. When I posted my graduation video in one of my social media accounts, I gathered 1,100 views and some questions regarding how to be an archaeologist in the Philippines, what are you doing as an archaeologist, and then another post about my fiesta experience in Mindanao, which gathered 11,000 views. So in some way, I am reaching a lot of people, especially the younger generation, and soon I am going to make content regarding to what basic archaeology, what is archaeology, and how to be an archaeologist here in the Philippines. That's all, Ma'am Grace.
Thank you very much, Shireen. I really like that. So we can do it formally and informally, intentionally and unintentionally also. Michelle, do you have yes?
Yes, I would like to share the how something for the question on how do we bring archaeology closer to the general or wider public. So recently the Kapisana ng mga Archaeologists of Pilipinas Incorporated, or CAPI, which is the professional organization of the archaeologists in the Philippines, has successfully organized the Teachers in Trenches Philippine Archaeology for K-12 webinar series for K-12 for K-12 teachers. So it is an initial endeavor of CAPI to help K-12 teachers incorporate recent discoveries on Philippine prehistory, archaeology, and heritage into their teaching of history, civics, and culture, and other related subjects in the K-12 curriculum. Of course, the long-term goal of this initiative is for the awareness of the archaeology as a field, of the recent archaeological findings, and appreciation of archaeology from the teachers and the students in the K-12. So it was the response from the audience was very positive. It was not behind the scenes. There were a lot of bloopers in the organization, but I'm very happy that we were able to pull it off. And this is and so this also bolstered CAPI being the professional organization of archaeologists as a credible source of information of Philippine archaeology. So aside from this activity starting to making impact to the public, I am very proud to say that this webinar series was the brainchild of the few members of the advocacy committee, which I had as one of the board of directors of CAPI, and the success of the activity was due to the enthusiasm, hard work, and this is very important, proactiveness of all the people involved in the organization of this event. So I think that's one concrete example.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Yes, you want to add something?
Because it has to be intentional or unintentional. I think it has to be intentional. Somebody mentioned in an earlier webinar, earlier in the COVID, one archaeologist mentioned that something to the effect that if you build it, they will come. No, they will not come. We really have to build it. We have to design these programs, as Michelle has just pointed out what CAPI did for K-12, and this is also from our experience of when we developed the 30 talks that you were one of the speakers in that series. You really have to design it and to keep in mind the target audience. Who do you want to reach, and what are you trying to impart to them? What do they want to learn, and what do you want to teach them? What will be useful for everyone? So it's not a simple matter of throwing it out there, shotgun approach. I really think we need to design things.
Thank you, Mylene. I think when I said intentional, it was in the context of what Shireen did, because when she posted photos, it was not her intention to educate or share archaeology to the public, but through that unintentional approach, people became interested. So that was the context of what I'm saying. But yes, I agree with what you said. Michelle, you want to add more?
Yeah, to add to the K-12, because when this was conceptualized, we also thought of how can we really help the teachers incorporate our archaeology into their curriculum, with less effort, because the teachers in K-12, they're already doing a lot of things, the ones that you hear from TV, their hard work in delivering the module. So the members the members of the committee like thought of, yeah, we should also include making the self-learning modules in the format of DepEd to share to them, so they don't need to make the lesson plan for scratch. Like although it was making ideas was easy, but the actual execution, like that's where
Yes,
it's
something we need to
actually,
discuss also.
yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. So we have 12 minutes before the session ends. So we have we have two more questions, but I'd like to combine them before we go to before we entertain questions from the viewers. So the last question is, how will you sell the future of archaeology to a young female colleague or friend or student to pursue archaeology? So, Maddie?
Okay, I can start.
Yeah.
I think when I was earlier in my career, and I know I'm still very early in my career, I'm still in grad school. I think I was very overeager in telling people, you have to do this, like archaeology, it's amazing, you should pursue this, do it in your undergrad, do it in your master's. And I think I've reached kind of the point, and I know a lot of other colleagues have, where there's a big responsibility for me reaching out to other, Filipino Americans in the US, that to explain that there are a lot of challenges to this career. And it's because academia has really shifted, because the life of an archaeologist has shifted so much. Like I said, we're not in that job security where you can go to grad school and then immediately have access to a tenure track job. We need to be more creative in finding avenues to work in, like museums with Ian, or other heritage-centered positions, or working in research labs, working as a research assistant, or there's so many different things that are available to us. And I really feel like a strong responsibility when I talk about Philippine archaeologists to other Filipino Americans, that it's not easy, and it's very difficult, and there's a lot of challenges. And I know there's a question in the Q&A from Marie kind of getting at things like different access and challenges that women can meet in this career. And I think it's a very rewarding career, but it's very difficult. And like I said, it's archaeology, and working on these projects, it's a long-term thing. And I think when I try and kind of sell archaeology to other young Filipinas, it's kind of, I always feel like I just explain how much it means to me personally. And most of the people who work with me know how much, as an American Filipino, someone who's only half Filipino, like having the ability and the privilege to work in the Philippines is something that, yes, it's challenging, but I wouldn't trade the past 10 years working in archaeology for anything. And it's meant so much to me, both personally and professionally. And that's why I am so invested in the heritage projects and bringing students to the Philippines, because whether or not they pursue archaeology long term or move into other research positions or other Philippine based things, that's mostly what I could have asked for, because it always kind of circles back to where they got their start and how their interest began in research in general. And I think the future of Philippine archaeology is limitless. There's so many things ahead of us. It's a challenging career, but there's a lot of rewards there too.
Okay, thank you, Maddie. Who else wants to answer that question? Ian? Before we go to the
think
Q&A.
Mailene wants to answer.
Mylene, sorry.
Sorry, thanks, Ian. Well, Grace, I lecture to a lot of people, like from a wide range of demographics. So grade school, high school, professionals, business people, and to everyone I say the same thing. I don't, and I would never sell archaeology to anyone. So it's a choice. You want to get into it. When you tell me that you want to get into it, then that's when we talk. But for me to say, oh, get into archaeology, it's such a great field to be in. I've never done that, and I make it a point not to do that. But when they say, we're interested, I'm interested, I'd like to get into archaeology, then let's talk. And the first thing I say is, get over yourself. Archaeology should not be seen as a self-serving thing. If you're going into archaeology and you think that, oh, you're gonna get famous, you're gonna get rich, this is not the place to be. Go get into business or something else. I'm seeing I'm saying this because I noticed recently that there are some young ones who are I'm observing, and this is just an observation, no? Very focused on wanting to be recognized. Um, well, first of all, what work have you done? Why do you want to be recognized? There are people in archaeology who have been there and who have put in the time, the effort, the sweat, and you want to waltz in and you want to get your degree and you want the recognition. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in archaeology. It doesn't work that way anywhere. So get over yourself. Focus on what the work that has to be done. When you're ready to do that, then welcome to archaeology.
Thank you, Marilino. I agree. You need to put on the work. You need to put in the work. You need to, yeah, meritocracy, like you said. All right, I think we should go to the Q&A. We have one from a friend, Marie-Louise Antoinette Sioko. How do you think women can support and be more powerful allies of each other, especially to those who are marginalized in many of these categories, like social status, career position, cultural background? Anyone who wants to answer? Michelle?
Women can support each other through mentoring. It does not have to be the vertical style of mentoring. It can be horizontal mentoring also, like if you are in the same status. And yeah, so yeah, mentoring is one of them. And yeah, I think aside from the mentoring horizontal and vertically, it is also important to be compassion with fellow archaeologists. Also, what we are going through, especially in this times of pandemic. So
Okay. From Christine May Bagot, what can you say about how archaeology is being introduced by our educational system? Maybe how it is introduced, sufficient or not, correct or wrong, is one of the reasons why young Filipinas may not feel empowered to be in the field of archaeology. I don't really know much about Filipino women in the field, but maybe inclusivity in the field has something to do with how it is taught. I'd like to call, yeah, Maddie, and then Mylene, because you are in the education aspect of heritage. Maddie?
I think there are a couple different projects and individuals who have implemented archaeology into early education. One example is in Ifugao. I know one project's initiated by Charmaine Ledesma. She was working on developing education based on excavations in Ifugao. She was working with educators. I know Dr. Acabado has the video about the Ifugao Archaeological project that he's produced and is available to students to watch so that they can learn not just about their own cultural heritage, but also about archaeology and how we got that information. And so it's really important. And that's why I've talked about, other avenues for using archaeology, and implementing early education is really important. And there's a project that I'm working on with Dr. Cabado and also with Christine Chua, also at UCLA, trying to provide these resources for students in the US, Filipino American students in the US, to have this information. And hopefully the more that these projects grow, that there's opportunities for them to kind of expand, and that we can make these resources available online. So even if they're not, if people are interested and they're not in the US and have access to these in-person things, we have these virtual things to introduce archaeology, to introduce cultural heritage earlier. Because I know probably many of us on this Zoom and many of us listening, we've had interest in archaeology early on, but it's really contingent on what resources you have access to, whether you see that as a feasible career, as a feasible interest to pursue. And so the goal is to just make as many of these resources accessible to as many people as possible.
Okay, Mylene?
Thanks, Grace. I think Maddie expressed that very well. There are a lot of projects that are ongoing right now that have been started by archaeologists like herself. And then, of course, like Dr. Acabado, who may not be female, but he's done a lot for Ifugao and Bicol in terms of making the knowledge accessible to the locals. The Ifugao project is wonderful. His project with Marlon Martin and involving the locals there. We had that in we had them as guests in our talk series in Cagayan, and it's a wonderful model. But then again, we have to maybe institutionalize these things. This is not part of the formal archaeology, is not part of the formal curriculum, whether grade school, high school, college. It's not until you get into graduate school and you enroll in UP. Is there any other university that has an archaeological program aside from UP? So again, but it's part of the bigger problem of our educational system. I was in a conversation with two historians yesterday, and we were talking about how taking off history from the high school curriculum has allowed these revisionists to actually revise history and make former despots look better now, because there's that gap between grade school and college where history is not being taught, and these are the people who are now in social media and receiving all of this input from God knows who. So there's a bigger context, I guess. So if you want to make archaeology accessible, as Maddie said, I think it should be included in the curriculum at some point. I know from my research in my master's showed that prehistory, of course, prehistory is now a term that we would like to change apparently to deep time history or something less colonial. Prehistory of the Philippines and prehistory of the world is each tackled one day in grade 4 and grade 5. So maybe that has changed now. I hope that has changed, but when this is just the amount of time that is given to the topic that archaeology actually serves, that archaeology, the information that archaeology gets, and this is what archaeology is supposed to teach, this is all the time that it has, then it's not going to be very effective. So what does that mean to us who are in the academe, who are practicing archaeologists, who are in the museum, who are researchers? We must create programs that will make this accessible and relevant to the bigger public. And that, I think, is, it's easier said than done. I know I'm oversimplifying things, but this is all the time we have. So we must create the programs, we must make it accessible, we must make it relevant to more people.
Okay, thank you, Mylene. Ian and then Shireen, very, very brief.
Ma'am, sige, Ma'am Ian.
Go ahead.
Ian first.
Yes.
I just actually want to share our department recently revisioned the BA History program in PUP. So we included the aspect of public history, and we have a course like museology and heritage management and historic preservation. So as I have a little background in this field, I was tasked to handle the subject. But recently, I am happy that another young archaeologist, Mom Tash, presently a PhD in heritage management in Germany, I introduced her and our dean invited her to teach the subject heritage management and historic preservation in the Philippines. And I think this is a big part of improving the educational system in the Philippines, where we add courses related to heritage management, and part of it is archaeology.
Thank you, Shireen. Ian.
Yes, subjects or classes may not be enough. So apart from exposing little ones, say our nieces, going back to our alma mater and discussing things like this with our former teachers, we could also invite students in practicums, immersion programs in our institutions. Say, let students take more classes to experience more and be exposed in subjects like archaeology. And then maybe if they decide to pursue it, then at least they had a good background or a good feel of what the discipline is.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. So, well, we're running out of time. There are other more questions, but I think many of the last two questions were answered during the earlier discussion. So, in ending this session, I'd like, if you want to give any last remarks, a few sentences about females in Philippine archaeology. Michelle.
Well, I think Philippines is one of the better countries to be a woman archaeologist, and also opportunities are not only limited to archaeology and or anthropology departments, but other departments of different disciplines also, and not only in the university. There are also like the museums, the contract firms, and hopefully government agencies will see the need of archaeologists and open opportunities for them also. And I think being an archaeologist being an archaeologist has an advantage of having transferable skills that you will be able to use this in not only archaeology but in other fields as well. And I think what's unique in the Philippines is since there is no undergraduate degree in archaeology, so the people entering archaeology are already from several fields of disciplines, and I think some of my female colleagues will agree with me as well that this diverse disciplinary backgrounds enhances archaeology as a multidisciplinary field in the Philippines. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Any more last words from any of the panelists? Mylene.
Grace, at this point, I'd like to thank the organizers of this talk for inviting us and including us in this space to talk about female archaeologists in the Philippines. I would also like to thank and acknowledge those who came before us in this field of discipline, especially you, Grace, who have really dedicated most of your life to the discipline of archaeology. And I think it's a big moment for us that you are now director formally of the Archaeological Studies program. This is a big moment in the history of archaeological research in the Philippines. People like you have paved the way for female archaeologists like ourselves, and you have cleared the path so that we are able to do what we are doing right now. I say this as somebody who is of the same age, but again, has come into archaeology much later. We really have for female archaeologists out there and those females who would like to get into archaeology, we really have to thank Grace and honor Grace for paving the way for us. And she has been steadfast in being there despite all the challenges And I guess because of the challenges, and she's now there, she's the leader of archaeology in the Philippines. And we congratulate her for that. And we acknowledge everything that she has done for archaeology in the Philippines.
Thank you, Mylene, for those kind words. But like I earlier mentioned, there are more senior ones. There are many female archaeologists in the National Museum. There were scholars before us now in the 1960s and 70s. And we are all looking at a bright future. All right. So thank you very much. All right. So Maddie, you want to invite them to the next panel?
Yes, that is a perfect place to finish up our discussion. Thank you to our moderator, Dr. Grace, and all of our amazing panelists to give us the past 2 hours of some really great conversation and dialogue. Really happy to see a lot of female archaeologists in the attendance list. So we really appreciate you showing up. And my own last little words, I guess closing, like final words as a panelist are, it's really up to us to just support each other and for others in the field to support us as well. And that support is really going to carry us through into moving into these amazing positions like you have done, Dr. Grace, and all of the women before us. And our final message to everyone watching, whether you're here on Zoom or on Facebook, thank you for joining us. Earl has dropped the link for the survey for panel 7 in the chat box and also in the comment box on Facebook. We really invite you to fill out the survey so that we can continue to improve our webinar series. We do have only one webinar left. It's next week, panel 8, same time, same place. So that will be September 27 at 8 p.m. for those of us on Pacific Standard Time, and September 28, 11 a.m. Philippine time. The title of the panel is Decolonizing Southeast Asian Archaeology. So please join us for our final panel next week and complete our survey for panel 7 if you want a certificate of participation that will come automatically in your email once you fill out the survey. And with that, thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope to see you next week, and I hope to see all of you here sometime in the field in the Philippines in the near future when we're able to again.
Thank you. Hope to see everyone soon.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Maggie.
Thank you to
Grace.
everyone.
Thank you.